My Lords, I rise to offer the Green Group's support for this regret motion and echo others in thanking the noble Lady Baroness Thornhill, wishing her all the best, and thanking the noble Lord Shipley for his excellent introduction. I think this motion is, in formal terms, a motion of regret. What's very clear from this debate is really what it is an expression of horror, of absolute infliction of poverty, inequality and deep suffering on people who are in that situation through absolutely no fault of their own, but as a result of, as the noble Lord Best said, decades of government policy which have seen housing treated as primarily a financial asset rather than homes that should be secure, affordable places for people to live. That includes the great privatisation of the right to buy policy, the failure to keep building council homes, and the reliance on private sector builders, a handful of them whose profits keep going up, while the rest of us suffer, the structure that reflects so much of our economy. Now, I will also echo the comments of the Right Reverend Prelate. I really think the government, reading the Secondary Legislation Scrutiny Committee report, should be absolutely embarrassed. It's very clear that the committee had to be like a dentist drilling into a hole to actually uncover basic facts that should have been there in the government statement itself. And I think we've discussed the issue of the cost, and thanks to the work of the Secondary Legislation Scrutiny Committee, they have deduced from the information provided by the government that the decision represents a saving to the DWP in the order of £600 million. Now, I went looking for some comparisons for that, and I had quite a few, but let's pick out one of them. That's 1/60th of the money estimated to be lost to tax dodging every year. Where does the money come from? Well, let's make corporations, rich individuals, pay just a tiny fraction more of what they should be paying in tax, and that would cover the government's costs. Now, we've already had a very extensive account of just how awfully inadequate the levels are of housing support. The Chartered Institute of Housing has described this as a huge gap in the support for private tenants. There is, and I think this is particularly, as in so many government decisions, an issue that's affecting the young most greatest force. The LHA shared rate for those who are single and under the age of 35 only covered the rents in 10% or less of 7 out of 10 local housing markets. If we look at 1 in 10 local housing markets, there are no shared properties within the LHA rate. And if we look at what's happening, a measure of that failed government policy that started off with, a report last year by Shelter showed that private rents across the country have gone up by 5 to 8% since the LHA was frozen in response to the pandemic in 2010. But that, of course, is actually, again, another best guess, another deduction. Because if we look at the ONS, the Office of National Statistics figures, rents in the UK increased by 4.4% between January 2022 and 23 alone. That's the largest increase that the ONS has recorded since it began these records in 2016. Yet the fact is, of course, that this is only what's measured. The reality of rent inflation is actually worse. Unlike house prices that are recorded on the land registry, there is no central registry of rents, and the ONS's attempt to collect this data is still what it describes as experimental. It's based on newly advertised properties and doesn't cover what happens within tenancies. And there's plenty of anecdotal evidence around of private renters saying their rent has gone up while they stay in place, struggling on as best they can, 20, 30, 50%. Those are the kind of figures that are simply not even being recorded in the horror stats that we're reflecting on now. So this truly is an indefensible statutory instrument. I can't help thinking, I guess because it's a financial matter, this House would not be in a position to move a fatal motion, but boy, should we be doing that if we want to act for some of the poorest, most disadvantaged people in the most desperate circumstances in our country?